welcome to another episode of S&P. I'm Song, the S. I'm your conferences and engagement manager. And as always with me is my bestie.
I'm Deputy Director Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the NAI Conference Name Badge Hall of Fame in my office here in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Well, Paul, we've got a busy week. We are gearing up with conference stuff. We have interviews for some open positions on staff with NAI this week. It's just really busy. So anyway.
Elections are ongoing.
The elections.
Everybody vote. NAI members, you should have gotten a ballot. If you have not, email me.
Yes, do it. Vote. Rock the vote, guys and gals.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right to it. Paul, we've got two special guests waiting in our waiting room. I, of course, am all conference all the time in my little world. But we've got two amazing gentlemen joining us today. When they submitted their pre-conference workshop, I was so excited. I'm so excited about the content because, yes, everybody has been kind of not hyper-focused, but kind of actually opposite all over the place, right? Understaffed, long hours.
Stretched thin.
Yeah. And I know that our book club read The Nature Fix by Florence. Oh, shoot. Now I forgot her name. Anyway, amazing, right? It's all about wellness and getting out in nature. And we have the other side, I guess, of nature, which is water focused. And these two gentlemen, we've got Brian from the South Carolina Aquarium, and then author Dr. J. Wallace, scientist turned blue scription guy.
Author, right? Yeah. It's Florence Williams, by the way. And I don't know that.
Thank you.
I had to look it up on our book club website page, which, by the way, you can go to and sign up to be part of our book club. It's a lot of fun. The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. And and so Dr. J. Nichols has written this book called Blue Mind, and that is super, super cool. Brian Thill, who's with the South Carolina Aquarium, has been with NAI for a super long time, has helped coordinate the NCDA Roadshow at our conferences year after year after year. So Brian's great. Dr. J, I'm sure I'm going to love getting to know him. He and I don't believe have met yet, but this conversation is great because it's all about, whether you can make it to Cleveland or not, it's all about getting your creative juices flowing, as it were, about how to use water creatively and how to access water for your visitors, for your audiences, and to use the sort of healing, emotional, supportive value of water in your programming. So I can't wait to talk to these guys.
Right. Well, hey, Dr. J and Brian, thank you so much for joining us on an episode of S&P. We are thrilled that you are putting together this pre-conference workshop in Cleveland. And Brian, I'm going to kick it off to you and let you kind of give a little summary of what people should expect if they join your workshop.
Yeah, thanks. And nice to see you, Paul and Song and Jay. And yeah, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about the power of water. And I'm gonna put on my interpreter hat here. We know water is powerful, right? So using some props here, we got two different rocks. One's very, very jagged, it's very edgy. Some may say sort of dull, just not a lot going on. And then there's this other one. It's round and there's some patterns and some things have been uncovered. And if we think about this from an interpretive standpoint or a geologist standpoint, it was water, right? Water over time smoothed the edges off of this rock. It unveiled other things, and really that's what Jay and I want to do is come together in workshop form and talk about how different zoos, aquariums, nature centers, cultural institutions can sort of use water as a method of reaching different audiences out there.
Very cool. And Jay, it is so nice to have you on board as well. I took a little skim, water reference, through your book, Blue Mind, and I mean, blew my mind. So we're thrilled to have you on board as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Jay Nichols. I'm a marine biologist. I'm really stoked to be joining y'all at this workshop and to be co-facilitating it with Brian. I wrote a book called Blue Mind, which is about the cognitive, emotional, psychological, social, and even spiritual wellness benefits that we get from healthy waters of all kinds. And, you know, as Brian said, in this workshop, we want to present the science and the practice to the people who can take it to more people, because it's our belief that it should be common knowledge for all human beings. And the best way to bring that to a lot of people is through aquariums, zoos, nature centers, parks, and all the interpreters who populate those places. Those are the people who are going to take this message to the people who need it most, which currently on planet Earth is everybody. We're having a little rough go of it here on Earth, and everybody needs a really robust wellness toolkit. And nature turns out to be the single best wellness tool in our toolkit, particularly water. So we want to talk about that. And that's really what the workshop's all about.
So you actually touched on something that I wanted to ask about, because I think, you know, when interpreters talk about getting into nature, there's almost this sort of image of like nature hikes and forest bathing. And, you know, you have a very sort of green image that pops to mind first. And you said particularly water, you know, getting people into nature, and particularly water. I feel that. I spent, you know, we were talking about in the pre-interview here, I spent 2 hours on a paddleboard with my daughter yesterday out on Horsetooth Reservoir here in Colorado. And it was just an incredible day. And I felt just so relaxed afterwards, you know, and I love getting to the ocean. What is it in particular about water as compared to other kinds of nature experiences that really enhances those mental health benefits?
Yeah, the research is pretty clear. Green space is good for us. It's very good for us. We should do that. When you add blue to the green, it's better. And the research is pretty clear about that. What the water brings is an extra bit of everything, really. So if you're planning on getting in the water, you're probably not bringing one of these. So getting a break from screens is a big part of Blue Mind. The somatic experience, that your whole body is completely immersed in the water. You don't get that in a forest in quite the same way. The sight and sound of water shifts our brains, gives our visual part and the auditory part of our brains a break. So there's that aspect as well. So water does all the stuff that green space does, but more of it, kind of. And it's definitely not a competition between green and blue, that's for sure. But it's more of a yes and situation. But water's special on our planet, straight up. Like there is no life without the water. And it's no surprise that we have this deep neurochemical, neuroemotional connection to water. And so our message is, let's teach everybody about that. Let's teach everybody a little bit about themselves.
You know, one thing too, as an interpreter, we always have to ask who is our audience. And I think the unique audience or audiences that we have with this one is, I think there's an internal audience, meaning staff. You know, we're seeing a lot of wellness groups pop up within museum industry, within zoo and aquarium industry to help with, you know, some of the things that we're facing, as Jay mentioned, coming out of the pandemic. We are inundated with emails, these things blowing up. You know, we'll who knows collectively how many emails we'll have after this. So really, when we get together, I think it's important, you know, one, talking about your internal audience that you have at your facility and how Blue Mind can help them. Is it promoting a walk and talk outside rather than a boardroom? We know we're more creative when we're outside. We can think, things slow down, heart rates come down, stress hormones come down. So that's one audience, you know, that we definitely want to touch on. And then there's our visitors and understanding our visitors. So looking at the different ways that maybe a pop-up exhibit can, you know, interpret Blue Mind, can interpret mental health as at your facility is something we'd like to touch on. we're seeing some opportunity for practitioners to come into our facility where they can use our sites, our facilities as a resource to particular therapy that they may be going through with a client. Again, I think any day you open up the paper, listen to some radio, we're hearing these rates of anxiety, depression, just ratcheting up. And early on, you know, Jay and I talked about just doing a summit where, again, we bring people into one place, but really, I think, as Jay mentioned, now is the time to really activate, like, and show people, like, because we have to get after this. And I think, you know, taking this to zoos, aquariums, nature centers, cultural institutions is that opportunity. We see folks from the Children's Hospital come down here, parents that are dealing with some really, really tough decisions, but they come to the aquarium, they come to water to kind of sort through all of those things. So again, very, very powerful in sort of shaping, whether it's decisions or thoughts. It's water.
Do those benefits, Brian, you work at the South Carolina Aquarium. I love aquariums. I love fish. I love sea life. Do the benefits of interacting with water extend to, for instance, someone visiting an aquarium? Maybe if they're not on the water or in the water, but they're adjacent to it, you know, are there ancillary benefits of being in a place like an aquarium, or does that blue mind apply in a situation like that?
Yeah, you know, for the folks tuning in, you may recall a time you went to a doctor's office or a dentist office and you saw a little tank. Well, there's a reason, and there's research, as Jay could tell you, about why that tank was there. It's that calming sort of feeling that you get before something that can you know, sort of heighten anxiety. We're just a larger tank here. And AZA, the Association for Zoos and Aquariums, they did a study a number of years ago, and they sort of looked at the audience segments that would visit zoos and aquariums. And there was one group that they labeled spiritual pilgrims. And these were the folks that you would see at your facility or nature center, that they would maybe find a quiet place, and just sort of stare off. Maybe it's staring off, you know, at the jellyfish exhibit or a tank. And we would always tell our interpreters here, you know, we pride ourselves on engaging our guests, but this is one of those audience segments that we'd be like, they're good. They are working through something. Let's not engage them right now, and, you know, until they come out of that moment and recognize that moment, because there's something happening right there.
Sure. And Jay, I know, I'm pretty sure it was your book. You outlined several different ways in which water, you know, you don't have to necessarily submerge yourself in it. You can listen to it, right? There's all sorts of apps now for, like, you know, calm yourself, meditation, and the majority of them have water music soundscapes to them. Even I think your book mentioned poetry. Reading about water also, like, calms your self, right? Is that, did I get that right, Jay?
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, to Paul's question there, you know, there's kind of a continuum. So you can imagine your extreme experience of blue mind being the tropical ocean floating at night or something like that. And then something on the other end that might be reading a poem about water, and then everything in between. And so it isn't always about going to the big water, the big wild water. There's also the domestic water. So there's the water in our homes, in the tanks and the pipes. So tubs, pools, spas, showers, even the sink. And then there's the water in our cities, the urban waterways. So the fountains and the urban waterfronts. And then there's what you referenced, the virtual water, which could be poetry, photography, film, paintings, artwork, songs, music about water, recordings of water. Last night, we finally got some rain here, way overdue. And I went outside and recorded the sound, because the sound of water that you record and then loop is the best sleep aid, because you kind of know it. You're intimate with that water. It isn't a digital water sound. And then the last category is the imaginary water. We all carry vivid memories, many of them positive, about the water we love. And so all 5 forms of water are available to us all the time, for the most part. Sometimes you can't get to that wild water, so you have to go for the virtual or the domestic. But the encouragement is practice Blue Mind every day a little bit. It will calm you, it will focus you, it will boost your creativity, connects you to yourself, connects us to each other, and connects us to our place. And it's good for mental wellness and physical wellness and social wellness. So that's the Bluescription. And that's what we'll walk through for everybody, because your Bluescription is different from mine. And we can figure out how it's different, and because we live in different places and we have different things we like to do and activities we prefer. Some people have fear of water, no problem. We'll take that into account, and everybody will walk out with their Bluescription. But more important for the interpretive community, they will walk out with the ability to write Bluescriptions, because we can all write them. You don't have to be an MD or a licensed therapist to write a Bluescription, because there's no way anybody can overdose on Blue Mind. So no side effects and no fear. So that's why we're, one of the reasons why we're doing this workshop, is to put these ideas into the hands of like some of the best idea spreaders, you know.
You say no side effects, but my hands were total prunes yesterday at the end of the day.
The other side effect that comes up once in a while is like people who are avid surfers sometimes don't go to work because the surf is good. That is the negative side effect.
Yeah. One last question, I'll just give this to Brian, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Is what are some examples from an interpretive standpoint of some programs that folks might implement using the Blue Mind principles?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be yoga. We've, again, combining movement with water. We've seen that happen both right out here on the Charleston Harbor, but also in front of our Great Ocean tank. We are also, from an exhibit standpoint, on the deck just below me, same view, looking at the Atlantic Ocean. We are placing 4 chairs and an interpretive panel there, again, to interpret the science. But again, it's that opportunity from an exhibit standpoint for folks to take a time out. From a staff perspective, we've done podcasts where we get the staff together again, because that's that other audience to talk about Blue Mind, not only for themselves, but then they garner that information, to share with our audiences. We've done adult programming in the past. A number of years ago, we actually brought Jay into Charleston as part of our lifelong learning series, again to reach that adult audience. So a number of different programmatic applications, and again, I think that's where the beauty of a workshop, it's coming up with these ideas, it's sharing those different ideas out there to where we can put this into different programming on the floor.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, you two, for joining us today. And registration is open for the conference as well as this pre-conference workshop. So if you're coming in just half a day early, I believe your the workshop starts at noon and runs till about 4 on that Tuesday. So there are still seats left, so you can purchase your ticket for this special workshop. Again, thank you so much, Jay and Brian, for joining us today on the S&P. And we'll see you, at the very least, I'll see you in Cleveland.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Good to see you
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. All right, well, Paul, I feel actually more calm even just talking about water.
I want to get back out. I'm just like, I've transported back to yesterday out on the Horsetooth Reservoir, just feeling the sort of the rocking motion. And yeah, it's to talk about, the sort of intuitive idea that water is healing and good for our mental health, but then to take that and talk about how can we be creative about using it in our interpretive programming. That I think is so important for this conversation, and something that will come out of this pre-conference workshop. And I will say, if you can't make it to Cleveland, this is also interesting to me. We're going to find ways to get this either in Legacy Magazine or into a webinar. We're going to find other ways to get this content out there, because it just seems so interesting and important.
Yep, totally agree. Well, let's get to it, Paul, for the rest of the week. And if you have questions, go to the conference website or email conferences@interpnet.com. Make sure you vote.
Yes.
Vote.
Go
Do
vote.
it.
So important. Song, always great to see you.
So good to see you, Paul. And we'll see the rest of you NAIers in a couple of weeks on our next episode.
See you in Cleveland.